You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Clothes for Chiro, Zinget Solutions, Imaging Services, Posture Screen, Dr. Peter Goldman's Zone School of Healing, Everest Coaching Systems, Bax Max, Chiro Thin, Rhino Coaching Systems, Chiro Moguls, 5-Star Management, The Goodman Factor, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Health USA, Local Gold, and Go Get Talks. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 114 of Chiro Hustle. I'm your co-host Luke Millette. Here's your host, Jim Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Roberto Monaco, and if you guys want to learn how to control the room with your message, stay tuned. So Roberto, welcome to the Chiro Hustle podcast. Just before we get into the whole interview with you, tell us a little bit about what got you so passionate about helping chiropractors and a little bit about your chiropractic story.
Okay, well, for those who haven't heard my story, my background, I was a speaking coach and I was working with a guy named Gary Gunderson, who is a financial guru. And he said, hey, you got to work with chiropractors. And I never understood chiropractors, never been to a chiropractor. That was like almost 6 years ago. Then eventually I connected Dr. Chris Zano in Houston. And I was helping him with his Dean of the Doctor programs and group doctors reports. And in the process, I met my wife and I knew we were going to get married. And then she stopped taking birth control pills and her period never came back. And then she went to 4 different MDs, no answer. And a year passed by and a half passed by. I was super frustrated. She was super frustrated. And then one day, Chris Zano came to San Diego. I was living in San Diego, and I told the story. He goes, man, we got to go and see a chiropractor. And then we went to Dr. Ryan Hummel, sit down, took an x-ray, and she had a big subluxation in her lower back, in her neck, and we started care. And then fast forward a couple of years, Christmas morning, December 24th, I will never forget this. She wakes, I'm drinking coffee with her mom, my mom. We were in San Francisco. And my wife, she was sleeping. She wakes up, goes to the bathroom, opens the door, and comes like towards me crying. And I'm like, what happened? What happened? What happened? And it's like, she couldn't talk. I'm like, what happened? She goes, I got my period. And then we hugged and we celebrated. And then fast forward 8 months, I was speaking for the Michigan Association of Chiropractors. Right after my talk, she pulled aside and said, hey, I'm pregnant. And then, and that was life-changing for me. Throughout this process, my best friends now are chiropractors, and they told me, hey man, you have to watch the movie, The Business of Being Born. Amazing movie about natural birth. So we watch Netflix, and my wife goes, I want to have a natural birth. And we found a birth center in San Diego. And after 22 hours, a big time labor, my wife was a Wonder Woman superhero. Baby Sophia was born. Now, here's what's important part of the story. When Sophia was born at 10:16 p.m. in the evening, and in California, you can stay 12 hours in a birth center. And 10:16 a.m., either you go home because your baby is healthy or you go to a hospital. And Sophia was born, and there was like liquid stuck in her lungs. And the 2 midwife nurses said, if she doesn't get better, we're going to send you guys to the hospital. And it was 5 a.m. And my wife, and Sophia had this equipment attached to her to measure her oxygen levels. They were very low. And my wife said, can we, do you think it should be okay to text Dr. Ryan Hummel? And you were planning to take Sophia there, but I'm like, man, it's 5 a.m. Is the guy awake? And here's the coolest thing. I got my phone 5 a.m. I text Dr. Ryan. Sophia just was born, man. Is there any way you can come here, the birth center? And within 20 seconds, I received this text. I was waiting for the call. And he came and he put Sophia down. She's 8 hours old. And touched her atlas bone. She goes, oh yeah, she's subluxated. And adjust her very gently. Waited maybe a couple minutes. And adjust again. And then, okay, and he gave Sophia back to my wife, Katie. And like a movie, Sophia goes like this. Threw up the liquid that was stuck in her lungs, and she gave the most beautiful baby cry. And I looked at Dr. Ryan Hummel, and he was an ex-rugby player, huge guy, with tears coming down his eyes. He goes, "Did you see the power of the innate?" And I'm like, "Holy shit!" Right? And then he goes, "I gotta go." And he left because he had to open his practice. And let's say maybe 30 minutes. Everything was moving so fast. And after 30 minutes, the 2 midwife nurses arrived in the room and said, "What happens? What happened here?" And I said, "Well, my chiropractor came in, detected subluxation, adjust her, she threw up, she's fine." No, what really happened? Like, well, tell us what happened. I don't know what else, how I can explain that. And I can tell you that maybe after 30 minutes, I text Ryan, right? I go on my phone and say, "Dude, you changed the course of her life. We are going to go to the hospital." And he texts back, said, "Dude, I'm still parked in front of the birth center honoring the Power Chiropractic. I'm still crying, cannot drive," because he experienced that miracle. And at 10 a.m., August 3rd, we didn't go to the hospital, went back home. And here's the why. I know it's a long answer here, but let me tell you why I work with Chiros. Because the experience to have a natural birth center in San Diego, we got to take this class. It's an 8-week class. And in our class, we had 10 couples. And in a natural birth center in San Diego, right, 10 couples, only one dad, only one mom, and only one baby were under chiropractic care, which was our family, 10%. And that's why I do what I do, because after experience, the power of the chiropractic adjustment, and I see so many people who never experienced or never will experience. So my contribution to the profession is very simple. It's just to help doctors, those who are willing to become master communicators, so can go into podcasts, do internal talks, outside talks, go TV, and be able to move people to chiropractic care. That's it. It's very simple. So that's why the last 5 years, I opened up a new company. I started with influencology back in 2008. So now I have a company called Chiro Speaking, which is 100% focused on help chiropractors become the best communicators they can possibly become.
So maybe you could talk a little bit about how you teach chiropractors to be better storytellers, or to maybe get over fears of public speaking.
Okay. So let's talk about the two areas, confidence, and then let's talk about storytelling. So a lot of chiropractors, not only chiropractors, but in general, fear of speaking goes in different levels. I met people who have phobia, which is like phobia is like really, really strong fear that people like, I did a chiropractic event in Vegas years ago. And in the end, this guy said to me, "Roberto, I have this huge fear of speaking. Can you help me?" I say, "Yes." And I say, "Set up for my class." So he actually paid for my class. 3 months later, on the day of the class in San Diego, this lady shows up. And I said, "I'm sorry, but you're not registered." And she goes, No. My husband originally, he's the doctor, he signed up, but he was so afraid to speak, and he changed his mind, and he didn't want to do a public speaking class, right? So the fear stuff, and he sent me here. She's not even a doctor. And obviously I check their office later on, and the office is closed. So how you do one thing is how you do other things sometimes. So fear is, so we have the phobia, then you have people who are afraid, but they say, "Hey, I gotta do it." So every single time, look, for them and gyms, like overcoming the fear is like going to the DMV, you know? I know I don't like speaking, but I'm gonna go anyway. So they fight. They do it, but they fight. Then the next level, a lot of doctors are in this category. They have no fear. They say, "I have no fear. I love speaking." Then I go watch their speak. They're not afraid to speak, to teach, but they hate closing. Right? So why you hate closing? Because you're afraid of being rejected? So I'm okay speaking, teaching, but I don't like closing. Or closing should be your favorite part. All right, should be your most exciting part. And then you have the level where like what I hope everybody arrives in the level is the level of love speaking. Because when you love speaking, guess what? Speaking loves you back. So how do you go, right? So how do you go someone in any of these levels, the phobia, the fear, and the liking closing, or feeling uncomfortable, to actually love speaking? I guess it's a process. I want to give some tips. Number one is this. It's really hard for anybody to become a confident presenter singing someone else's song. Right? It's really hard. So many times I talk to people, and a lot of chiropractors, they get a talk from someone else. They say, hey, if this doctor is saying those things, therefore I'm gonna be successful too. So they actually try to sing someone else's song, and deep down they don't feel authentic. And now because they don't feel authentic, they go and they feel like it's almost like the band Milli Vanilli back in the 80s. You guys remember the band Milli Vanilli? Girl, you know it's true. Ooh, 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 I love you, remember? Right? Those guys became very successful. And then eventually they got like awards. And eventually they realized they're lip singing the whole time. So part of it is like being authentic to your message. Have a strategy, understand the psychology of influence, understanding the persuasion code, but have your message. When you own your message, when you talk about the chiropractic stories, the experience that you have in your office, that will give you enough certainty and desire to communicate powerfully. And in the second thing about fear that Luke asks is that it's kind of like, I have a lamp here to record this video. So it's kind of like it's a metaphor. Imagine you have a spotlight on you. And when you have a spotlight on you, most people, when it comes to speaking, they make the message about them. How do I look? Am I going to be judged? Do they like me? Do they like my accent? Sometimes people say, man, I have a talk next week and I have some MDs in the room. And I'm like, and what's the problem? Right? So because they're making the message about them, and I realized long time ago that in persuasive speaking, in leadership, when you communicate, it's all about your audience. It's all about moving them from point A to point B. So if people experience this excess of, I call funda, fear, uncertainty, nervousness, doubt, and anxiety, if someone experiences that, it's because they're putting the spotlight on them instead of shifting and putting the audience, put the light on them, and realizing that every time you speak, every question you ask, every story you tell, every metaphor we tell, every study you share is about moving your audience of 1 or 1,000 from point A, where they are, to point B. We hope chiropractic cares. That's the idea. So fear, number 1. 2, you asked me about storytelling. Storytelling is, I believe, the secret sauce in communication. It's not all about storytelling. Because there's other things too, but it's a big part of communication. Right? And I teach storytelling. The way I teach storytelling is there's 3 major stories every professional, every chiropractor gotta be able to tell. The first, if you want to write it down, right, our listeners here, the first one is your quote unquote your personal story. So for example, first question Jim asked me, why do you work for a chiropractor? Right? So I had my quote unquote personal story. That was not the first time I shared the story. I shared before. The story is like why I do what I do. So everybody gotta have why I'm there speaking. Why am I advocating? And a lot of chiropractors out there, they think that, man, I was just trying to find a good profession for me, because they compare themselves with other doctors who have this crazy story. I'm about to die. Then I went to chiropractor, got adjusted. I'm like, changed my life. And then I actually became a chiropractor. And there's a big part of the profession. I would say more than 50%. We're just people who want to help people. They look into other professions. I want to be an MD or whatever. They'd be like, you know what? I want to do something natural. And they went to chiropractic school to be a good profession. They never had this breakthrough before. So, and because of that, they think they don't have a story, which is the biggest lie ever, because everybody has a story. Everybody has a story. And there's a lot of I developed there's story themes to help chiropractors to format the story. So your personal story, you gotta be able to tell. And I always tell my clients, every time you do a patient orientation class, if you do a group doctor report, if you do a stress talk in a company, if you do ergonomics talk, if you're doing a posture talk, you always tell a personal story. The only time you don't tell your personal story, if you're doing a lot of Facebook Lives, for example, or video marketing, you're not going to be telling your story every single day, right? People are going to think you're crazy, so you don't do that. Then the best way to do it is to record it. And I know Luke does some amazing work with the video marketing. Then you record it, and then you put it on your website, because people, if you go to my speaking page, chirospeaking.com, and you click, and you're going to see a 10-minute video or 8-minute video, whatever, of my personal story. So that's the first story, personal story. Second story is patient stories. Believe or not, I probably am the coach in chiropractic who reviewed the most amount of chiropractic talks in the country. You know, if you know anybody who spend around 8 hours a day reviewing talks, let me know, because I spend a lot of time reviewing talks, all kinds of talks. And it's crazy to see that some chiropractic talks have no stories. No patient stories. Some of them are good, but some of them, they talk about the principle, but there's no stories. And it's crazy for me, because chiropractic started how? With a story, right? Guy goes in, get adjusted, restore his hearing. The whole chiropractic start with a story. They'd be like, and then other people heard about the story, like, no, I want to experience that too. What is that? And now when you go and you communicate, we try to remove storytelling from the talk. It's crazy. So how you make your patient story better, right? So I want to give a tip here. When you're doing talks, depending on the talk, because some talks are 5 minutes, some are 10, some 15, some half an hour, depends. People ask me, man, you should not speak more than 20 minutes because audiences they're bored. And I'm like, well, Tony Robbins speak for 12 hours straight. Is the highest paid speaker on the planet. How long is a TED Talk? 18 minutes. Oh, right? So it's like, it's not much about the time. It's about what? How good the speaker is. So obviously, the longer you go, I get it, right? The longer you go, the harder it is for you to keep people engaged. I get it. But I don't, dude, if your message is 10 minutes, 10 minutes. If it is 15, it's 15. All right? Because I came from the Tony Robbins camp. Man, guys speaking, whatever, 12, 14 hours, and people are like, they don't want to, the audience does not want to go to the bathroom because they don't want to miss a word he's saying. How to explain that, right? So it's not about the time, it's about how good the speaker is. So when you talk about a person's story, your patient stories, here's a tip. Make sure your talks, you tell a male story, a female story, a child story, and an old person story to create something that I call identification. And identification is not my word. Was a communication scientist back in the 60s. His last name is Burke. He used to teach rhetoric. And he said that when you tell a story, you create this identification. And identification happens when someone, an audience, could be an audience of one or an audience of many, they identify themselves, himself, herself, with the character story. So when you create this identification, like, boom, oh, that person is just like me. And now, because that person is just like me, or is just like my husband, or just like my kid, or just like my grandpa, just like my wife, now what happens? Resistance goes down. How am I going to resist someone just like me? How am I going to resist someone just like my wife? Can, right? And that when you have more identification, less resistance, you create this environment for influence, right? Because people can counter-argue your facts. People cannot counter-argue your personal experiences. It would be really hard for anybody to counter-argue my two stories about chiropractic, 2-in-1, my wife and my baby, how are you going to counter argue that? And I know that chiropractics, I don't promote chiropractic as a way to eliminate symptoms, not at all. Right? Chiropractic is all about expressing yourself, expressing the full potential of your health and live a better life. I totally get that. But I personally, how am I not gonna share that? I have to share. And it's really hard. And I had so many people who saw this story on YouTube and Facebook, non-chiropractors, who reach out to me and say, hey man, I recommend so many, like just like you guys, recommend chiropractors all over because they heard that, because they attract the story. They're not resisting because they identify with a character, my wife or Sophia. Makes sense? Mm-hmm. So 1, your personal story. I'm almost done with a long answer here. Look, 2 is your patient stories. And 3, what I call the Swiss Army knife story. And the Swiss Army knife story, the reason I call Swiss Army knife is the stories for everything else. When I teach, I always ask this to my clients. You say things every day, right? You say claims or points. Right? You say things. So imagine if everything that you said, your clients go, okay, I believe it, and they act upon it. Imagine that. Imagine a society where every time a chiropractor say, go get adjusted, people are like, okay. And right? Everybody, but no, they resist. Right? So how do you make those claims more persuasive? Right? I'm not promising here that every time you're going to say something, 100% of people are going to believe you. No, that's not my point. My point is that, so how do you increase the likelihood of your claims or your points are accepted? One way, there's different ways. One way is to tell a story about it, okay? And one of the transition phrases between claim and story, and it's very simple, and I train my mind, and I want to share with you is this. Let me give an example. Like, let me give an example. 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 So let me tell you, I know you guys in Colorado. So we have one of my clients, maybe you guys know him, Dr. Chris Pello. He's in Denver. Mm-hmm. So Dr. Chris, I was working with him, years ago. And one day he calls me up and he said, hey man, I'm speaking for churches here in Colorado. And I'm having this challenge because the church I'm speaking to, they promote a lot of marriage counseling. They promote financial classes. And a lot of them, they don't promote health. And what happens is I see pastors dying early. I see pastors and even congregation, people, totally unhealthy. And it's almost like they're building the church on a weak foundation. And I have a talk coming up. Can you help me? And I think it's stories. And I'm like, okay, I think I can help you. Give me 24 hours. So he hung up the phone. I'm like, all right, here's my process. I go, what is an example of that? What is an example of that? What is an example of building something in a weak foundation? What is an example of that? And boom, I got it. So I call Dr. Chris and say, hey man, after you pass your forms, the last thing you do, you finish up this story. And here's the story. Now I'm Dr. Chris, right? I'm role playing here. Go like this. Now, and before I go, let me just tell the story. Back in the 80s in Brazil, right by in Rio, they built up these 2 brand new buildings, brand new towers, right on the ocean. Luxurious towers. The units are so expensive. And you could see the ocean, like these huge windows, could see the ocean. And the kitchens, beautiful. The cabinets, perfect. Very expensive. And all these rich Brazilian people bought units there. I mean, so expensive. First class. And a couple months later, on Friday, on the first night of Carnival, and thank God it's Carnival because a lot of people were partying, one of the towers, brand new building, collapsed. Killed 8 people. Engineers from all over the world say, what happened? A brand new building collapsed in Brazil. They flew in and they did this crazy investigation. And then they realized that in order to save money, the construction company mixed concrete with beach sand. And they build those towers in a weaker foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, and that's how most Americans here manage their lives. They have the money for the fancy things, for the cable bill, for the purse, for the nice shoes, for the vacation. And all it takes is someone gets sick in their health and the entire family structure collapse because they're building their lives in a weak foundation. And if you want to build up a life in a strong foundation to achieve the goals and the dreams that you want, you need two things: God and health. I'll see you in my office. 38 people in the room, close 42, right? Call me up like, dude, I could not believe it. Now, obviously, it was only the story that was able to move the audience. Was the whole talk, right? But that's a pretty good story. And if you want to use, by the way, for those who are listening to us right now, feel free to use the story, and you can type it up, Palace 1, Palace 2 on Wikipedia. You can put Palace 1, Palace 2 buildings in Brazil. So that's, you're gonna find that, but that's the story pretty much. So that's how we want to communicate. I actually I developed 3 years ago a class called Stories That Sell, Volume 1, and I'm just finishing up Volume 2. So I have all kinds of stories. So when I do presentations, Facebook Lives, videos, interviews, talks, man, I always have a story in my pocket. Always. Because the stories entertain, add value. I mean, I can go on and on and on the value of storytelling. But look, you asked, I know it's a long, I'm talking too much here, but you asked me about confidence, you asked me about storytelling, and I'm like, man, I cannot not answer those questions.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Close for Chiro, Zing Solutions, Imaging Services, Posture Screen, Dr. Peter Goldman's Zone School of Healing, Everest Coaching Systems, Bax Max, Chiro Thin, Rhino Coaching Systems, Chiro Moguls, 5-Star Management, The Goodman Factor, Mahalo Wellness, Chiro Health USA, Local Gold, and Go Get Talks. Let's hustle.
No, it's great. So we've had some public speaking engagements recently, and I used to always be afraid to, speak, but Jim's been having me introduce him. So I get a chance to go up and just talk for 2 or 3 minutes, and I think I'm getting a lot better at it.
I love it. You know what? I was just let me give you a little tip, an introduction. I love that, and I'll tell you, public speaking gets eventually. I want to give a tip here and share a story. I'm writing down, so don't forget. So one of the tips when you introduce Jim, you can say, look, I'm here. Today's going to be a great day. Please put your cell phone in silent. Today, we're going to talk about how you can grow your practice using social media technology, YouTube, podcasting. And then you can say, I could spend hours talking about how awesome Jim Chester is. For example, I could spend hours talking about he built up the largest podcast in chiropractic, that he built up a documentary in chiropractic, but everybody loves him. But you know what? I don't want to spend time on that. But use the framework. I could spend hours talking about, for example, I could say that. By the way, you were saying anyway, right? And then you're like, but I prefer to share with you what kind of person Jim is. Just last month, we are hanging out on Saturday, and someone called him up, a client, and he stopped hanging out to go and serve, right? Because he comes from his heart, right? 24/7. And that's the kind of man who's going to be speaking today. Please, ladies and gentlemen, give me a big round of applause for Jim Chester, everybody. Come on, Jim, right? So that's like, so if you build up a little credibility, right, with the things that Jim has done, but then you say, but you know what? I prefer to share a little bit about what kind of person he is. Then you can humanize the introduction. And the cool thing about, maybe you can find this a little story. What is an example of Jim being like a super cool dude and super amazing human being, and just like we know he is, but if you are able to tell an example and quote unquote humanize, now people feel super, you increase the connection even before he start talking. Yeah. As far as I have a cool story that I want to share about fear, about being comfortable. Before I worked with chiropractic, that was back in 2009. I received a phone call one day from a guy who does research on a lab. And he said, man, I'm a scientist for many years. Has probably the smartest guy I ever met. He's a PhD from MIT in biology and chemistry. Guy is like, man, deep smart. And he goes, I've been working in the lab for all these years, and now my company grew, and I have to talk to investors. And it's not like I have fear of speaking. I just hate it, don't like it, phobia. And I asked one question, how much do you love science? He goes, man, I'm a scientist by nature, love science. And then I said, okay, man, one day, I know you won't believe me right now because your goal is to have more confidence, but one day you're going to tell me that you're going to love speaking. I just remember this part of the conversation. And then I started helping him. 6 months passed by. Do you know when you go in a conference and they give a little badge, speaker badge, you know what I'm talking about? So hold on. Sophia, Dad is in the podcast right now. Hold on, I gotta show hold on. This is gonna be fun. Hold on. Come here. Say hi. Oh, Sophia, say hi. Say hi to Jim. Say hi, Sophia. Say hi. Hi. Give me a look. Say hi. We're in a pool. Yeah, okay. Send a kiss to the audience. Kiss. Oh, nice. Okay, now we gotta go, baby. I have work. Lovey, I'm doing a podcast, baby. Okay. Yeah, just grab him, her. Oh, man. So then, when you go do an event and you have a speaker badge, they give you like Jim Chester, you give your name. So I'm coaching this guy, 6 months passed by, and I received an email with attachment, and he said, open, and I double click, and on his wall, it was a picture of his wall, and his wall was had 30 or 40 speaker badges. He goes, dude, it changed my life, right? The coolest thing. So that's why I said, if you're getting comfortable, look, everybody can, with certainty, can be an amazing communicator, amazing speaker, and could enjoy. Because for me, it's not only about being good or effective, it's about loving. Because when you love something, then it's gonna be something fun. Like, hey man, I'm looking for today. I'm like, man, I can't wait to the podcast. So pumped, so excited. Speaking is the same thing. I hope Sophia did well in her appearance.
Yeah,
she's famous now.
Yeah, it was awesome, man. It was the first baby on Chiro Hustle.
Whoa, here you go, dude. This is it, right? I think that, I don't know if you guys saw it on TV, but there was a guy doing an interview, and then the child opens up the door to the office. Have you seen that? It went viral, the whole thing. It's funny. She was trying to duplicate that, man. Oh, man.
Let's get to a little bit deeper on this chiropractic topic. And I know you've gotten to know the profession pretty well.
Yeah.
What have you seen being some things that we can improve upon? And where do you see the profession going in, say, the next 20 years?
Okay. So I work with a variety of segmentations in chiropractic, a variety. And I seen, from my perspective, I seen people being successful doing so many different things. As far as chiropractic is concerned, I feel there's a huge opportunity for amazing chiropractors. I think that's like, if I just want to be a full-time 100% chiropractor, there's an amazing opportunity, because, man, when you find an amazing chiropractor who can adjust really and take care of you and take care of families, I think is so unique. And I think is subluxation is not going to go away. So I think that, man, you have an opportunity, you have a uniqueness about the profession. You can serve people, can get people well, keep them well. One of our inspirations, Dr. David Sirio. I don't know if you guys know him. He's in Argentina with the book 33. And man, he's creating massive impact, has like so many different Vida Chiropractic is an example. Dr. Carlos Bodosian in Connecticut, is another. So I have these guys who are literally blowing up chiropractic, just doing chiropractic. I'm not anti if you want to do anything else than chiropractic. I'm not a doctor, so it's not my job to say it's a bad thing or not. It's not my role. But I think as far as chiropractic is concerned, just speaking of chiropractic, and obviously I was just at Sherman 2 weeks ago. I see them, man, Sherman, they're doing such an amazing job to educate, create chiropractors, promote the chiropractic principle. They're really doing an amazing job. So I think the future is bright, Now, a lot of people say, well, but how about this attacking chiropractic? And every profession has been attacked before chiropractic. I work with a ton of mortgage brokers. Man, what chiropractic been through, they think it's just, people are fighting within the profession or they have outside forces. By the way, it happens on the industries too. It's not only chiropractic. You know what I mean? So personally, I feel for the chiropractors who want to just practice chiropractic, I think the future is bright. Now, are there other kind of like don't want to use the word mixers, but like or where people expand into different modalities? I think if that's they have in their heart, that's a choice they make.
So let's take a minute now to talk about you personally. What are some of your favorite books or podcasts? What are some of your hobbies? What do you do for fun?
Perfect. I love it. So I'm kind of boring guy. I realize. Oh man, I gotta go hang out in Colorado with you guys, do some hiking.
Come on out.
Yeah. So so I travel a lot, right? So I travel a lot. So then because I travel a lot, and you guys travel a lot too, when I come home, I like to spend a lot of quality time with my wife, a lot of quality time with my Sophia, and now my wife is pregnant again, so I'm super happy. So I'm like, I love to just stay at home, go walking outside. I live in South Carolina, which is I'm 12 minutes from the beach, go to the beach, love that. So, and chill. I love reading. I'm a reader. And I love reading, but the books that I read, they're not very fun for most people. For me, it's fun. I like to go to the source of things. So like I want to recommend this book for if anybody wants. So it's kind of like I want to be very careful how I recommend. I like for example, my goal is to eventually become one of the top, not only speakers, but speakers, coach, and influencers ever. That's my goal. So I truly study the science of communication. So this book, there's like probably around 2,000 studies on communications called Persuasive Communication: How Audiences Decide. It's not easy reading. It's not fun reading, but I like it because I read the page. I'm like, and I think about it. I like to read things that I don't understand. I like to read things that cause me to think. I've been in a phase back where I just reading stuff that was aligned with my belief system. And I heard this and kind of like the feel good stuff, At this point in my career, I like to read things that challenge me, my thinking, and make me like, man, I never thought about that. I'm like, I never thought about that. And I want to, and how do I apply that? Because I'm like a how-to guy. So I want to be able not only apply to myself, and then I can apply, and if it works, then I want to share with my audiences. So I that's the kind of reading that I do, more like the science of a communication, self-persuasion. as far as fun, man, I just like to, my routine, I wake up every morning 4 a.m., walk downstairs, have an iced coffee. I love iced coffee. And then 4:15, I'm in front of a computer and I try to do some writing, you know. Then around 5:15, I go to the gym, come back home by 7, then start working. And my limit's 5:30. 5:30, boom, Roberto Monaco becomes a dad. Then Sophia time, then husband time. So very, I guess, structure, you know, in that way. And have 2 hobbies as far as stuff that I do outside, you know, the personal development. And I love, one is like, I love NBA, just love it. I played basketball in Brazil. I was not a good player. I was not a good player, you know, but I play. So I love it. And when I came to America, man, these guys here, they can play. Let me tell you, it's amazing. And I know Denver was watching Denver. They did pretty well. And so I love when I have some time NBA and MMA too. I love MMA. So that's it, man. And speaking something for me that truly fulfills me. Because I even thought about, like, man, I'm kind of boring guy. I don't have a lot of hobbies, you know. But then I realized, man, I love what I do. How many people can say, hey, I don't want to retire, you know? I don't want to retire. Why am I going to retire? I love what I do. Now, I can wake up tomorrow with $100 billion in the bank. I'll not stop speaking. I'll not coaching. I'll probably do it in a different way, you know. I'll definitely, you know, change a couple things around. But why I'm going to stop something that energizes me? I'll do it. I will not. So, yeah, so I guess I'm one of those rare guys who I kind of mix work with fun, and I just love, man. When I go to vacation, I always carry on those books, you know. In between margaritas, I'm like, man, because that's excites me. That's me, you know, has been me. And I do a lot of audibles too. A ton of audibles. The stuff, yeah. How do you call it? Audible.com, yeah.
Audiobooks.
Yeah. Great courses. Have you guys listened to any great courses? Great courses, a collection. Actually is, man, they have some amazing ones. So basically they get top-notch teachers from the best universities, and they record the lectures, and they do a lecture. It's called Great Courses. And they have on, man, in everything you can, neuroscience, leadership, public speaking, storytelling. So it really feels like you're in a class. But you know, sometimes like, oh man, I graduated 10 years ago. I don't want to be in a class, but this is like, they were good, right? So, you know, sometimes when you go to a class, there's a special teacher, you know. My mom was a teacher, and I always love education, man. I know there's I'm a big proponent of education, of coaching, of training, of spending time. I love education. I truly love education. I'm still sometimes I wonder, man, do I have the desire to go back to school, get a PhD or another master? But at this point in my career, I have all the stuff I want to do. It's just like not much for the knowledge, but more for the environment. You know what I mean? The environment of like learning and growing. I love that. It's part of my DNA.
One last question for you. I know our time's coming to an end today, but if you had a chance to give advice to a chiropractic entrepreneur, what would that advice be?
First, listen to chirohustle.com. Number one. And you guys are the leaders, so hey, gotta listen to chirohustle.com. I'll do 2 more. I'm gonna do 3 advices. 2. Have you guys trained them? By the way, they didn't ask me to do it, so you're thinking about it, asking me. I'm just saying, have them. Those 2 guys help you out. I know Jim's a master with the screening, right? When you went to Alaska, how many people you got in a?
You know, the one day we did 100 scheduled, and 12 days we did 491. So yeah, the numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah. So I feel like there's a lot of chiros entrepreneurs who they're trying to figure out that code, how to go screening. I mean, the guy's done it. How many screenings have you done?
You know, at this point, I think we're about 700.
All right, man. Jim, teach me, man. All right, teach me. I have him do it, because what's the cool thing about it is that is something that you can do, can have someone do for you, can train your staff. It has a blueprint. And the third thing, a little self-promotion, become a master communicator. Learn how to speak in public, how to move people into action. With others, there's other public speaking coaches out there. Or if you want to check out my stuff, go to chirospeaking.com. But Chiro Hustle, information, you guys interview a lot of top leaders too. Learn how to screen. You know, we have a master here. Plug for Look, video marketing is massive. You know, we're just talking about the importance of have videos in your website, Facebook, YouTube. You know, Dr. Bergman, John Bergman, he came to my class 4 years ago. You guys know Dr. John Bergman, YouTube guy?
Yeah.
He brought 2 assistants, and then become buddies. And I was just with him at the Truth seminar, and he's like, man, the guy he's booked. He was getting 8 patients a day, booked a day from YouTube. Right? So I know you guys teach YouTube, have an agency too. So you know, there's like, it's not one thing. Like, man, learn how to screen, learn how to speak, video marketing, and go serve people.
Well,
I know it wasn't one, you know, it was 3 in 1, maybe 4 in 1 here.
The Swiss Army knife.
Yeah.
That's it. Hey, Chiro Hustle check, speaking check, video marketing check, screening check. All right, done. All right. But that's it, right? Look, obviously, I think what comes first is like, man, am I an amazing doctor? All right, great. I'm an amazing doctor. Like, so that's like is a must. Gotta be an amazing doctor. But then if screening, there's events everywhere. Speak opportunities, there's opportunities everywhere. Video marketing is right there. So it's like those 3 things. And the cool thing about either screening or video marketing or public speaking, you are always in control. You're in control. Do I want to schedule this? No. Do I want to speak? No. You control the flow, you control your activity, and just become good at it. And then you go serve lives. You know what I mean? So that would be my advice.
Great.
Well, Roberto, thank you so much for being our guest today. I'm glad we got it scheduled after having to move it. So this was really important to us. And I
appreciate you guys so much. And I'm sorry about baby Sophia, but she's going to be the first baby in Chiro Hustle, man. That's a big honor right there, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate you guys.
You too. And we just want you to enjoy the rest of your day. All right.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. Much love to you both. All right. Peace.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a good day.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.